I hope you all are doing well. This video is not planned. This video is responding to the feedback I received in peer review after the essay number 1 peer review survey I sent out as essay number 1 was being submitted. And also I am responding to comments that I more commonly made on the murder mystery, which was due the week before spring break. I'm making this video during spring break, so around March 15th. So please take everything I say in this video into consideration as you are writing your essay number 2, and ideally also your essay number 3. So I'm going to start with a lot of the comments I left for the essay for the murder mystery. The purpose for the murder mystery activity was to help you practice skills such as for finding evidence, critical thinking, being specific with language, and also reasoning. In your essay number 2, you should form a thesis that states a claim about how your chosen image persuades its audience to think, feel, or do something. It's rhetorical analysis. I've commented on the invention number 1 so far, so make sure you're going to look at the invention number 1 feedback, and you should revise your thesis accordingly to move into your essay number 2. If you need to email me a revised, rewritten thesis, please feel free to do so. I'll be happy to help you with that as you're moving forward. I also have a PowerPoint. It's under the Readings tab. It's called Rhetorical Analysis Pointers. I didn't make a video about this because I made it after I'd finished all the videos, but it definitely talks about a lot of the specific kind of pointers that I would have more time to talk about in the physical classroom. And I oftentimes find myself commenting a lot, and the murder mystery was no different. A lot of my comments ended up being about being specific with language, deleting unnecessary language, and reasoning, which is what I'm showing on my screen right now. Reasoning is the why. So if you don't have any reasoning in your essay, you will only have just probably a list of evidence. You should have a thesis, a main claim, that shows what you will be supporting throughout your entire essay. Then you should have evidence throughout your whole paper that supports that thesis. But you can't just list a bunch of pieces of information. 1, that would be really boring. 2, you would be listing. And 3, it would be a data dump information. You yourself have to be the person to connect the dots and ask yourself a lot of these questions I have on this slide. This is slide 15 on the PowerPoint if you want to come back and look at this. So if whatever information you're looking at, you should ask yourself, how does this information support your thesis? How is it relevant to your essay? If the information is not relevant to your essay, if it does not support your thesis, then you should delete that. That is kind of the revision process, the writing process, is there's probably going to be some deleting, some rewriting. If you're not doing that at all, you are more than likely not finished yet. You're going to be doing that on some level, some people more than others, depending on how much pre-writing you've done. Okay. If your answer to that question is this information does support your thesis, then you should clearly explain how and why that supports your thesis. Your reader will not know anything that you do not show them. Okay, so do not expect your reader to understand. Also, you should be specific in your descriptions. Assume that your reader cannot see your image. So I have an example here that is an kind of unrevised essay. This is from several semesters ago. I don't have the person's name on here. This was a very rough draft. They never made it to peer review. This essay never was actually turned in to a final draft. This was just kind of submitted way before, kind of in the classroom, way before peer review even happened. But I do want to talk about this paragraph, and I see a lot of instances in this earlier stages of writing, and I want to talk about how they could be used if your essay is anything similar to this, how to revise, okay, how to go forward. So this essay is only a page long. It says, look at the man's face in the picture. Do you see anything different? Beyond this sentence being a run-on sentence, also is a question, and it's also asking and assuming the reader to have access to the image. Like I just said, assume that you have evidence. Who is the man? Questions that I have: who is the man? What is the picture they are referring to? and why are they asking the reader to do the work? Okay, don't expect your reader to do the work that you should be doing as the writer. So explain it doesn't have to necessarily be in the introduction, but explain the image for them. What is the image that they should be thinking about? Okay, how should they be thinking about it? What I like to do is, if I have a Word document, highlight anything that should be deleted. So I would delete that. Do you see love or hate? Do you see war or peace? Does he look relaxed or regretful? These are the questions to ask when a man goes to war. I would delete this. I don't know how any of this is relevant. How is the reader supposed to know what the man looks like, they don't know what man it's referring to, if they don't have access to the picture? So explain. So I would rewrite this, and as the writer, explain who the man in the image is and what they see in the image and why they see that. Do they see war? Like, what exactly do they see? If they see these, and why do they see war or peace or relaxed or regretful? And why is that important to the reader? Okay, how is that relevant to this essay and how they're building out to a thesis? Okay, they said, this man, I still don't know who the man is. Looks like he's a German soldier in World War II around the Eastern Front. I am multiple sentences into this essay, and I just now know what kind of person he's talking about, a German soldier in World War II. I've commented on the word you a lot. The word you is not necessarily something I liked. I never want to say never use a certain word. I have read essays that use questions at the beginning and refer to the reader and actually work really well. It's hard because you have to make sure you're not assuming something about your reader, and if you are, you have to be 100% correct, which is difficult, okay? You also don't want to assume something that is incorrect. So if you're assuming that your reader can see the image, that's incorrect. How are they supposed to know that, right? And so they're not going to be able to understand what you're looking at. If you have any questions, a general rule, avoid the word you unless you are working really hard to actually make sure you're not making any assumptions or that you're 100% correct. So that's really difficult to do. But generally, okay, try to avoid the word you. Ask yourself, who are you actually, as the writer, referring to when you say that you? Are you referring to yourself? Can you say I or me? Are you referring to a group of people? Specify that. I see a lot of words like she or they or it that there's no context around that sentence. I, as a reader, don't know who you're referring to. Okay, so be specific in your language who you're referring to. Words like thing, that could be used 5 times in the same paragraph. Each time the word thing can mean something different. So what do you mean when you say the word thing? Words like good or bad. So as you're revising in your language, find those certain words. When you ask how would my reader know what I'm talking about, if they wouldn't, make it more specific. So this is what I'm intending to say, and then specify your language to show exactly what you're intending to say. You control what you're writing. Show your reader what you're trying to talk about. Okay, so they say, for example, look at the helmet. Again, assuming that the reader can actually see the image. For example, the helmet on the soldier with the uniform, also the rounds the soldier has. This isn't a complete sentence. His face is full of horror. He looks like a heavy gunner because of the rounds he has in his left shoulder. His position looks like he's tired and weak, but he still has a picture. Still has to move on. When we look deep into this picture, we can obviously assume, again, assuming something. Who is we? I don't know who we is. Why are we obviously assuming? Who is this guy? Is in the middle of a war. Why are they assuming that he's in the middle of a war? Like, what evidence do you have to say that? And so, it looks like they. Who is they? What is he referring to when he says it? So, and as I read on, it's clear that there is no thesis here. So this is a student who is brainstorming, which is fine. It's perfectly fine to brainstorm. But earlier on the semester, we read a lot of essays for Commonplace book entries that were related to brainstorming. So, on and learning, shitty first drafts, rethinking the shitty first drafts. We've written essay number 1 so far. Think about what techniques and strategies you used for your essay number 1. What worked? What did not work? utilize those strategies for this essay. If you wanted to, did you write a shitty first draft for your essay number 1 and then you rewrote it? If so, did that work out? This is more than likely a shitty first draft. They have, the writer then has to take what they're writing and rewrite it in order, once they figure out what their thesis is. Hopefully the goal of the invention number 1 is to help you understand where your thesis is, so you're less likely to have to rewrite several times. You do want to rewrite, but I hate being that person. It's 2 days before the essay number 2 is due, and I have to say, you want to rewrite your whole paper. I don't want to have to be that person, but it's my job to say that. I will if I have to. So start early on this paper. It takes a lot of revision. You also want to be consistent and relevant. Show your reader where you're going. Don't just jump into talking about something that your reader goes, huh? Where did you get this? I'm not sure where you're going with this. Your reader should be able to see where you're going. Don't simply just put transitions between paragraphs. Make sure you're connecting ideas. Okay, don't write a 5-paragraph essay. And this is an essay, it's really easy to do that. Don't just say one paragraph I'm talking about ethos, another paragraph I'm talking about logos, another paragraph I'm talking about pathos. Once you have your thesis set up, and it can change, but if you change your thesis anywhere in the essay, make sure you go back and revise that thesis. And you also are now supporting that new thesis. That happens a lot. So once you have your thesis, that's what you're going to be supporting for the rest of the essay. Okay? I've read a lot of essays where the introduction, the first page, is pretty incredible. They're setting up an interesting thesis, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm really interested in how you support it. In the next paragraph, they start talking about something completely different. Okay? Once you have that introduction, once you have that thesis set up, that's what you're now supporting for the rest of your paper. Don't go off talking about something different. It has to be relevant. Okay? So be specific with your language, eliminate unnecessary language, and make sure you are clear how the information you're stating supports that thesis. When we come back from spring break, we'll have another complex book entry, and that complex book entry will be on the example essay number 2, and I have another video about that, so I'm not going to go too in-depth here about it, but notice they are building up to a thesis. They have that thesis, and also the PowerPoint that I talked to you about earlier, the extra help for that for rhetoric at your rhetorical analysis essay, that shows pieces of information from this essay. Okay, but one aspect I want you to keep in mind too is as you go through the essay, keep the thesis in mind. Keep asking yourself, how is this information relevant? How are they showing that this information is relevant? Use this essay as a model. Okay, you can critique it. There's no such thing as a perfect essay, but one aspect they do really well is it's not a 5-paragraph essay, and they do specifically show how the information that they are providing in their essay supports that thesis. So as a reader, look at this essay, and this is a heavily revised essay. Okay, this is heavily revised. Probably one of the better rhetorical analysis that's been submitted to me in the recent years. Okay, so compare what I just showed you about the World War II, where I have no idea what's going on, and they're making a lot of assumptions, to the example essay for the next complex book entry that's very clearly explaining that. So make sure you're paying attention and you're taking that into consideration for your essay number 2. The other aspect I wanted to talk to you about was the essay number 2 peer review, and I'm making some changes, and will post this in the email I send with this with this video. I know peer review can be nerve-wracking. The biggest reason I do peer review is to help everybody understand what other people are doing from a reader's perspective. So if you are having trouble with, say, paragraph formation, and you read another essay that maybe does it well, or is, can tell that they're working on that in the positive direction, you can look at that person's essay and compare it to yours and really learn from it. Well, how are they doing that? Ask your reader a specific question. Ask your classmate a question. How have you been revising paragraph formation? Have that conversation back and forth with them, and talk about how they revise, and maybe you can adapt some of their strategies. with specific language. If you're having a hard time breaking out of like using the word you, or you use the word thing a lot, and they don't, how could you maybe go about revising that and looking at those examples? In addition, if you look at their essay and they're also using vague language like thing, and you don't know what they're talking about, that is a better way also to reinforce the idea that your reader probably also doesn't know what you're talking about. So peer review is really helpful from not only just a writer's perspective, but a reader's perspective. And writing and reading go hand in hand. It's very difficult to have one without the other. So it's more examples in real time as your classmates are writing the same assignment. And then that can really help understand what's going on. The problem with essay number 1 was I saw a lot of comments that were only focused on surface level issues. So for essay number 2 peer review, and this is going to remain for essay number 3 peer review, the rule I am implementing is that you should not, you cannot comment more than 2 times on everybody's paper about grammar. Okay, so if you wanted to put like one whole comment about maybe run-on sentences and say, this is a run-on sentence, pay attention to them throughout your paper, or this is a sentence fragment, pay attention to them throughout your paper. Don't only comment on spelling issues, don't only comment on run-on sentences. Grammar is important, but assuming that everybody has to revise and potentially rewrite going forward, they're also going to have to re-edit. Okay? So point out in no more than 2 comments per essay. So if you're reading 2 other papers in your group, you can only do 2 comments about grammar on your first classmate's essay and 2 comments on your second classmate's essay. Same if there's third, okay? No more than 2 comments about grammar. Focus your comments on other areas such as unnecessary language, being more specific with their language, how they could revise their thesis, critical thinking. Are they showing reasoning? Are they showing how one piece of information supports their thesis? Paragraph formation. Are they writing a 5-paragraph essay? More importantly, show them how you are interpreting their essay from a reader's perspective. If something doesn't make sense, show them, okay? It is easier to edit. It is easier to put a comma or take away a comma. It's harder to rewrite and revise, and that's really what we should be focusing on. So the essay number 2 peer review, I believe, hold on one second, I want to make sure I have this right, because I didn't originally have this up because I wasn't going to talk about it. Again, this whole schedule's at the bottom of the syllabus, so if you forget where something is due, definitely look at that. I talk about this in a variety of different videos. You can also go back to those videos. So the week 10 is going to be about complex book entry number 7. And then Sunday, March 28th, is going to be essay number 2 peer review. So you should email me your essay number 2 draft by Sunday, March 28th at 11:59 p.m. That's email, not Blackboard. Remember, rough drafts are email, final drafts are Blackboard. Okay. On Monday morning, I'm going to set that up, and then I'm going to email you all when that's ready to go. Going to be using OneDrive, just as we did before. I would suggest once I emailed you and say that it's ready, try to click on the link. I had some problems on the first peer review that the link wasn't working. I know what the issue is now, so I can kind of fix it a lot easier. So if you're not working, please let me know, and I can address it as soon as possible. And then you'll have until Tuesday night to finish the peer review. So it'll be between Monday morning and Tuesday night. It's around a little less than 48 hours to do that. And then the final draft will be due Thursday, April 1st. And the reason for that, the reason it's not Sunday, is because it's Easter weekend. SWIC is closed on Friday, April 2nd, and throughout the weekend for Easter. And so April 1st is the deadline because of that, and that's also why the peer review draft is due Sunday night versus Monday night, and you have a little bit less time. So over spring break, over the next week after spring break, really want to be writing, revising, doing as much as you can. If you need to email me a rough draft of your essay number 2 ahead of time, please do so at least a week before the final draft is due. So if the first final draft is due the 1st, make sure you're emailing me your rough drafts by the Thursday, March 25th by 11:59 p.m. If you need to conference with me, I have office hours every Wednesday, not during spring break, but every other Wednesday from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. If that does not work for you and you would still like to conference with me, send me an email, and we can kind of talk about some other time that would work for both of us. I'm happy to help in any other way like that, but I gotta know what's going on, so please let me know if I can help anyway. Please let me know if you have any questions about this video, and I'll be happy to help. Otherwise, enjoy your spring break, and email me if you have any questions.